What's up everyone? Thank you so much for tuning into another video here on the Simply Car Things YouTube channel. Now without further ado, we're just gonna jump straight into today's video because we have a lot to cover in terms of content and information. We're gonna be breaking down a lot of the technical upgrades and enhancements that were made specifically for the F82 BMW M4. Much of this applies to the F80 M3 as well. And just talking about why, from a technical and objective standpoint, this car is a powerhouse of a sports car, especially compared to a lot of other models within BMW's lineup, particularly making some comparisons to the E92 M3, which was the predecessor of this car, as well as, you know, comparing it to like a 435i or a 340i, because a lot of times I hear a lot of viewers basically talking about, well, why get an M4 when you can just get a 335i and tune the crap out of it and upgrade the turbo and it's just as fast? Well, there's a lot more going on with these M cars that don't necessarily equate to high power, but also significantly enhance the performance and sports car feel and drive of these cars significantly that a lot of people really don't know about. So if you guys could please smash that thumbs up button, as well as subscribe to the channel down below if you haven't done so already. I make tons of awesome content on just anything sports car related. You can be sure to catch it here on Simply Car Things. And let's jump right into the video. Now, the first thing that I think is pretty important to mention and is the heart of every single M car is the engine and its main power plant. Now, with this car, we have the S55 engine. This is a twin turbo inline six engine. And just as an FYI, I did make a more in-depth breakdown actually comparing this engine to the N55 engine, which this is actually based off of. I'll put a little card up to it right here. But in summary, this is a very high performance power plant, and it's a closed deck inline six featuring two single scroll turbochargers. It features a completely forged bottom end with forged pistons, forged crankshaft, forged rods, which not only enable the strength and durability of the engine, but it also allows the motor itself to be very high revving, similar to a motorsport engine, something that would be used in a racing application. And the S55 actually has a 7,600 RPM redline, which is extremely high for a twin turbo inline six engine, especially with anything forced induction, six cylinders. That's a pretty high red line for something of that nature. It also utilizes air to water intercooling, and it has its own separate indirect charge cooling system as well to help maintain temperatures within the engine bay. It features a mechanical water pump, which is very important in terms of reliability, but it also has a separate electric cooling pump to help reduce the temperatures on the turbos once the vehicle is shut off. And it has multiple heat exchangers. I think there's like 7 or 8 total heat exchangers on this car. It has a dedicated oil cooler, a dedicated trans cooler for the DCT gearbox, and there's a lot going on to make this car an absolute beast. This car, not only does it make a lot of power, 425 horsepower in the United States in the non-competition model variant, and then 444 horsepower if you opt for the competition package, but it is highly tunable as well. The engine can easily make 500 horsepower. Pretty easy, it can make 600 horsepower if you upgrade your fueling components, and if you wanted to upgrade turbos and stuff like that, you can make even more power. It's a very, very strong engine in that sense. The S55 also features a dual high pressure fuel pump fuel system with direct injection, very high fuel pressures that are, you know, sent directly into the combustion chamber of the engine itself. The injectors are actually press fitted into the cylinder head. There's no rubber seals that are used or anything of that nature. In fact, the entire frontal or like low pressure side of the fuel system is all stainless steel basically, which is why a lot of people have successfully ran E85 ethanol fuels and E85 blends and race gas and all that kind of stuff safely on this car without really damaging the fuel system. And of course, just given the really durable and high strength nature of the S55, it's safe to do so as well. This engine also makes a significant amount of torque as compared to the previous S65 naturally aspirated 4-liter V8 that was featured in the E9X M3, and that is in large part due to its forced induction nature. And this also increases the torque spread quite significantly. You have a lot of low-end torque with this motor that is actually able to be utilized all the way up to a very high point in the RPM band. I think it's like 5,500 RPM or something before the torque curve starts to fall off a little bit. And even then you can still rev the motor out pretty high, like I said, to about 7,600 RPM. So Overall, this is a very stout power plant. It is very impressive in terms of the hardware that's being used for a car that was in the $60,000 to $70,000 price tag. And in terms of just the technology, it is a significant leap above a lot of what BMW had in the past. Now, this wouldn't be an appropriate technical overview video if we weren't talking about weight savings that are utilized on the F8X platform. And trust me, there is a lot to cover in the weight savings department. Now, unlike many other newer cars, whereas they go into a new generation and as they develop a new model, the cars get bigger, they get heavier, and as a result of that, you can see a hindrance to the performance of the car. This generation of BMW actually took a step back in the weight department and shed about 178 pounds in comparison to the E9X M3. And a lot of this is due to lighter weight components and materials used throughout the entire body of the car. And I guess what we can do is start off by talking about the front fenders, which are completely made out of aluminum. In addition to that, the hood, the power dome, and just the bonnet in general is completely made out of aluminum as well. The front subframe is actually made out of aluminum as well. The control arms on the suspension are aluminum. A lot of the suspension knuckles as well are manufactured from aluminum. The roof on the F82 M4 as well as the F80 M3 is made from carbon fiber. Exclusive to the M4 is actually a carbon fiber trunk. It's actually made of a fiberglass material that has a carbon fiber panel underlaying it sort of to develop the shape. And on top of that, the trunk of the M4 actually has an integrated gurney or a spoiler designed built into it, as you can see by the curvaceous nature of the trunk itself. There's also a carbon fiber strut tower brace that is used to increase rigidity of the chassis and of the front end. There's also a carbon fiber drive shaft that is used on this car as well, and a magnesium oil sump, or the oil pan itself is made from magnesium. Now, it is important to mention that with these cars, there was a certain recall on specific model years of the carbon fiber drive shaft. I don't know specifically off the top of my head which model years those are, but you know, now that you know about it, you can look it up, and I'm sure in some forum somewhere you'll be able to find more information on that. And in addition to that, the magnesium oil pan was actually ditched for an aluminum oil pan in the later model years of the F8X. Again, I don't know the specifics to which model years those are, the production dates, but I'm sure somebody in the comment section will be able to chime in and provide some additional info regarding that. And of course, the 18 or 19-inch wheels that the M3 and M4 came with, in this case, the 513M wheels are fully forged, and they're also made from aluminum. So lots of weight-saving material implemented into this car in a number of ways. Even the seats on the interior have carbon fiber structure reinforcements, again, to reduce weight throughout the car. And this is something that is quite notable about this generation of BMW, is that it is the lightest in its class. If we look at the competitors, which would be the B9 Audi RS5, as well as the Mercedes C63S AMG sedan or the coupe, you can note that those vehicles are significantly heavier than the M3 and the M4. And that is one thing that is truly quite awesome about this gen, is that it is by far lightest in its class by at least a couple hundred pounds relative to its competitors. Now, of course, as I mentioned previously, these wheels are extremely lightweight. They're 18-inch from the factory, and they weigh about 18 or 19 pounds a piece, which for OEM wheels is very, very impressive. Fully forged again, made from aluminum. And if we actually look behind the wheels themselves, we can actually see the factory big brake kit that these cars come with. Now, F8X BMW brakes are actually more than adequate for the vast majority of driving that you're going to be doing. Even on track, they are very, very impressive in terms of their performance. Now, this is a 4-piston Brembo brake caliper that is fixed up in the front end, and then you have a 2-piston Brembo caliper that is also fixed in the rear. We also have these large ventilated and cross-drilled rotors. The rotors themselves are actually 2-piece to save unsprung mass on the vehicle. And while it's not like a true 2-piece rotor, I believe the top hat and the rotor itself are still 1-piece technically. It is 2-piece by design, and again, that just helps to reduce a lot of that unsprung mass gas and reduce weight on the car overall. Like I said as well, these brakes are really solid in terms of what they can provide for stopping power. Really the only thing that people normally upgrade to in terms of performance is just their brake pads as well as the fluid, and on track these brakes are quite adequate. So now that we've made our way over to the rear end of the car, I think there are a couple notable things to mention in terms of the overall technology and hardware, again, that's used in the M4. So like I had mentioned previously, the trunk is made out of carbon fiber, and as you can see by the curvaceous nature of the top of the trunk, and if you look at the way it kind of rounds and folds itself out, it acts as a natural spoiler for downforce. Now, of course, if you're a heavy track guy or whatever, you're going to want to add a wing, and even the M4 GTS has a three-way adjustable wing that is bolted directly to the trunk itself, but again, more lightweight use. Of course, with the M cars, we also get the signature quad exhaust tailpipes along with a performance optimized exhaust system, although I would recommend just going straight into the aftermarket in terms of exhaust systems. But another thing that is pretty cool to mention is going into the rear end. Of course, you can't see it here, but the electronically controlled limited slip differential in this car is really intelligent. Now, if you guys know anything about these cars, you'll know that they are a riot to drive at the limit, and they offer a significant amount of power that can be quite tough to manage at times. Now, the differential really helps to work to manage that in many ways because of the way that it's tuned, and because of the fact that it's electronic, it can actually adjust the lock on the diff itself. And this is actually influenced by a number of driving factors, such as your throttle input, your steering lock, as well as the pitch and G-force sensors that are utilized in the car as well to measure how the diff essentially distributes its power. The other really cool thing about the rear end and adding to the overall chassis rigidity of the F8X is the fact that the rear subframe is actually directly bolted to the main frame of the car, and this is only possible due to the rigidity of the body panels themselves. Now, with this entire generation, the overall structure of the body panels and the lightweight and use of extensive carbon fiber allowed the chassis and platform to be much stiffer and much more rigid from a driving standpoint. And because of that, they were able to, again, directly bolt that rear subframe to the main frame, which adds to the overall rigidity of the car and the stiffness, less deflection, less play in the rear end, and ultimately that's going to help to increase the performance of the car, put down the power and whatnot. Now, the M double clutch gearbox that's actually utilized in this car is basically in line with a lot of supercar transmissions in the sense that it is extremely fast in the way that it shifts. It is very responsive when you hit the gear shift paddle, and it is very reliable and durable itself. Now, the MDCT has shift times that are under 100 milliseconds. They are extremely quick, and again, it's just lots of exotic technology and hardware that's implemented into these cars to make them viable on the racetrack. Well, everyone, that is just a taste of some of the significant reworkings and revisions and hardware additions that the F80 M3 and F82 M4 have gotten in terms of performance improvements and enhancements, because there is a lot that goes into these cars from an engineering standpoint, and I'm no engineer, I'm no technician, but I thought, you know, it's only right that I kind of show off, you know, what these cars have under them that makes them so capable. And this is just a small bit of the crazy amount of reworkings that actually goes into them. And I'm sure many of you guys will chime in down below and add a bunch of things that I probably didn't cover in this video. But just to kind of sum up everything again, the S55 motor, really strong, really high power, really high revving and durable, tons of lightweight materials that are used on, you know, extensive use of aluminum in the suspension and in the body panels, carbon fiber, lots of stiffening with the carbon fiber strut tower braces, the aluminum braces that sit again over the strut towers, the rear subframe that's bolted to the main frame, and so much is going on with this car that really just makes it purpose built for the track and just to be an amazing sports car. And there's a reason why this car for the longest time has really sort of been the flagship and benchmark in terms of sports cars in this segment and in this class. So if you guys found this video informative, if you found it helpful in any way, if you enjoyed it, please again make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel down below if you haven't done so already. I would appreciate it a ton, and can't wait to be making some more content for you guys. The mods are already here actually, so stay tuned pretty soon because we're gonna get those installed on the car. And yeah, can't wait to get everything else out for you guys. Thank you for watching. I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.